Hello and good evening. My name is Dr. Brian Henning, and I'm professor of philosophy and chair of the Environmental Studies Department here at Gonzaga, as well as co-chair of the nonpartisan climate action group 350 Spokane. To welcome you to campus and to this land, I would like to invite to the stage Dr. Raymond Reyes, our associate provost and chief diversity officer. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Reyes to the stage.
Good afternoon. Is it a good afternoon? All right. I want to, on behalf of President Thane McCullough, and as well as the Provost and Senior Vice President Dina Gonzalez, I truly from the heart want to extend a warm welcome to all of you. In a couple of weeks, Gonzaga is going to acknowledge the foundings of the university 132 years ago on the 21st of October. And as many of you might know, that the establishment of this space occurred out of an intercultural relationship between the indigenous people of this area, the interior Salish Plateau Indian people, and the Black Robes at the time. Although the Jesuits had been around here for 177 years, it was 132 years ago that the university was established. And in that spirit, what I'd like to do is share something with you that myself and Wendy Thompson worked on last spring. We went to Welpinet and consulted with the Culture and Language Department in Welpinet. And we met all day long, and I took about 8 pages of notes, trying to get the spirit and intent of what the tribal people would want you to know about where we are right now. And I kind of had to distill it down to this for now, and it's still a work in progress, but I think it's worth sharing with you, particularly the focus of your convening this late afternoon, early evening. In the spirit of the Jesuit practice of composition of place, we acknowledge that Gonzaga University resides on the homelands of the Spokane tribal people. This land holds the cultural DNA and the spirit of the first people of this place, the people of the river. It is their ancestors who are here and bring forth the power of this place, the knowledge that comes from the land. We're grateful to be on this land and ask for its support as we work to manifest our intentions during this gathering of hearts, minds, and spirits. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Reyes, and thank you all for being here tonight. It's my really sincere pleasure to welcome you to Gonzaga and to be moderating this first ever Spokane Candidates Climate Change Forum. The event this evening is sponsored by not only the Environmental Studies Department, but also some of the wonderful environmental advocacy organizations here in Spokane, including 350 Spokane, the Lands Council, the Spokane River Keeper, the Community Building Foundation, and FutureWise. You can find out more about all of these groups, including signing up on their lists by visiting their tables at the back on your way out, or maybe on your way in you already did. Please note that the event is being recorded and will be posted online, so if you want to later share it with your friends or neighbors, you can do that. In just less than 5 weeks, Spokane, on November 5th, is going to elect a new mayor, a new city council president, and half of its city council. The purpose of this first Candidates Climate Change Forum is to aid Spokane citizens in their democratic deliberations. A functioning democracy only works if citizens are aware of candidates' views on the most pressing issues facing our city. We believe that climate change is an issue of vital importance, and so finding out what candidates think about this issue is important to exercising our democratic duty. Contrary to how it's commonly presented, climate change is not primarily a partisan issue. According to a study by the Yale Center for Climate Communication, 67% of Americans describe themselves as either cautious, concerned, or alarmed about global warming, whereas only 26% of Americans are either doubtful or dismissive. Most citizens in Spokane are interested in candidates' views on global warming and what they would do to help Spokane mitigate its causes and adapt to its effects. So a little bit about how we'll proceed tonight. In terms of audience engagement, I would hope that we can model the civil and discourse that we wish our own leaders would always follow. So I'd like it if we could all agree to not boo, not clap, and not cheer. So if candidate says something that you like, hold up that green sheet of paper, and if I was prepared, I would have brought one up. Hold up the green sheet of paper if you like what they say. Oh, thanks, Lamont. And if you disagree with what they're saying, then hold up the red sheet, right? So you can do some audience participation. We can get a sense as to what people think. If you don't have those colored sheets, just raise your hand now and a volunteer will bring you some. Or visit the back. So the format for our event, we were going to follow the format used for one of the presidential debates in 2016. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to a question, and I, as the moderator, will have the option of asking a follow-up question, and the candidate will have up to a minute to respond to the follow-up. The forum is going to be divided into 2 segments. The first segment will focus on offices that are elected citywide, which includes the mayor of Spokane and the city council president. For mayor, voters will choose between Ben Stuckert and Nadine Woodward. And for city council president, voters will choose between Brian Beggs and Cindy Wendell. After the primaries, we invited all of the finalists to attend this forum. Regrettably, Cindy Wendell, who's running for city council president, declined the invitation to share her views on climate change. We also contacted Nadine Woodward, who's running for mayor, on multiple occasions over many weeks without a reply. Indeed, actually more than 50 members of the community wrote her letters asking her to explain her views and to attend the forum. We received no responses from Ms. Woodward until about an hour ago, when I received a brief email stating that she will not be attending. Regrettably, it would seem that neither Wendell nor Woodward are concerned enough about this issue to attend this event and share their views. However, we're very happy to have with us 2 candidates, Ben Stuckert, who is running for mayor, and Brian Beggs, who is running for city council president. Please join me in welcoming them to the stage. So I think what I'll do is give you that, and then you can each have a microphone.
Are we going to disagree?
Yeah.
I'm going to go over here. All right. So, just a reminder about our format. You're going to have 2 minutes to respond to a question. There'll be up to an additional minute for the moderator to facilitate further discussion. Our timekeeper, Fauna, here in the front, will hold up a sheet indicating when you have 20 seconds remaining, and then also a second one when your time is up. So please be attentive to the time so that we can keep everyone on and give everyone equal time to speak. So, first question goes to Mr. Stuckert. Mr. Stuckert, what, if anything, are your concerns about global warming's effects on Spokane, the inland Northwest, and the world? You have 2 minutes.
I'm hugely concerned. I think it's the national government is failing, so it's up to cities and states to actually lead on climate change. And just so we're clear up front, climate change is real, global warming is real, and it's human caused. Before I keep going, I'm very disappointed that both of our opponents are not here. I encourage you all to take a picture of this vacant area and post it on social media, because it's not acceptable when you're running for a public office to not show up. Even if you don't agree with the issues or you think you'll be in a hostile crowd, that's part of leading a community. And it shouldn't be controversial. 90%, 97% plus of client scientists, the people that have studied this, believe the way that we all do. It's not controversial, and it shouldn't be controversial. Locally, cities account worldwide for 2/3 of emissions across the world. And if the federal government is not going to lead, it's up to cities to lead. Our own climate data analysis shows that our built environment accounts for over 50% of emissions in the city of Spokane. We will build a denser, more walkable environment if we actually want to impact the climate. If we put 1 duplex and 1 fourplex on every city block in the city of Spokane, we would decrease emissions by 20%. Just think about that. We could cut the problem by 20% just by building 1 duplex on every city block and 1 fourplex. Is that my time? All right, 20 seconds remaining. If we look at what happened 2 out of the last 3 summers, August, with the fires, if we look at the fact that for the first time in 90+ years, we had snow in September, those are the impacts that we're already feeling locally on climate change.
Thank you, Mr. Stucker. Mr. Begg, same question to you. What, if any, are your concerns about global warming's effects on Spokane, the inland Northwest, and the world?
Well, I want to bracket them 2 different generations. My grandmother helped raise me for many years, and she was a great lover of the earth and took care of it and taught me how to do it, whether it was plants or animals and clean water. And she was blessed to live to 107 and steward that earth. And so I have her on one hand, and then I have 3 children on the other who are all in college, who are all passionate climate justice advocates, and who poke me all the time because I'm not moving fast enough. Not moving fast enough for them. And they're like, okay, you're on the city council. Come on, how come we haven't solved this yet? And it's really helpful. And what I'm really excited tonight is to see the diversity in generations here. Because for this problem, this existential crisis that we all face, it is going to take all of us with all of our perspectives to do it. And the city, as Ben said, the city is well positioned to do it. We're small enough that we can actually get agreement and move ahead, and we're big enough that we can make a huge difference, not just for Spokane, but in leading the state and leading the nation, which we have been doing. Some of you might know we passed a greenhouse gas reduction ordinance several years ago. We were the first real place significantly in the state to get a private utility to agree to 2030 100% renewable electricity grid. We did that with a Vista here. And then the state passed it. And I talked to other communities around the state and I let them know that we can do this together, because there's more to say tonight, but if there's one thing that I will say that I think is helpful in the city and the nation is this: we don't have to agree on everything to get something done. We don't have to agree on everything to get something done, and that's how I lead on this issue.
Thank you both, and thank you to the audience for sticking to our rules so far. This is great. So, second question goes first to you, Mr. Beggs. Tailpipe emissions are the #1 source of greenhouse gas emissions in Washington state. So, Mr. Beggs, a 2-part question. What is your understanding of the links between land use, transportation, and climate change? And what policies do you support to give people in Spokane more opportunities to reduce individual vehicle miles traveled?
So I've been struck in my almost 4 years on the council how important land use is at the city council, and how those basic rules govern how we live and what options they give us. And so the basic philosophy that I've adopted, and I know Council President has as well, I've learned a lot from him on this, is that the closer you live between work and between work and school and all those places, you just cut down on your trips, you cut down on the length of trips. And so it's about giving people options and choices. And so what we've been doing as a city is really giving people more choices to live downtown, to live closer to centers and corridors, and then to combine that with robust transit, public transit. So you can choose. If you want to drive a car, you can choose. But if you want to ride your bike with good bicycle infrastructure, if you want to ride a bus with other people, a community that's easier and cheaper for you than a car, that's what you will have the choice to do. And so all our incentives should be going in that direction of density. All our regulations should be pointing in that direction and will be safer and healthier. Other policies that I've been involved in is the micro scooter, electric scooters. I don't know, we're up to about 20,000 or 30,000 trips a month that we save from cars from that. And it's really about giving people choices. I know my kids, my son was at UW in Seattle. He never had a car there, just used public transportation. My daughter Bridget, refused forever to get her driver's license because she was like, I'm not gonna have to have a car, am I? She finally got it. She had one job living in a sprawly place, and she said that's the last time she'll do that. So I try to lead by example by riding my bike, by taking the bus, but most of all, I want to give all of us choices so that when we are convicted on that issue, we have the option to follow it.
Just a quick follow-up, Mr. Beggs. So would you support increasing development at the edges of the city and out, or are you for more,
No.
more concentration in the urban corridor?
No, I don't support increasing development. We actually, if we are creative with our regulations on how we allow housing, there's still plenty of room for single-family housing within the city, within the closest parts of the city. We have to adjust some lot size issues and other kind of suburban frontage land use rules. We have been killed by the county, which is building apartment buildings on the very outside of the city limits and then expecting us, the city, to pay the taxes to build the roads for that.
Mr. Stucker, same question to you. What is your understanding of the links between land use, transportation, and climate change, and what policies do you support to give people in Spokane more opportunities to reduce individual vehicle miles traveled?
So I'll start with a story. My wife and I bought our first house in 2003, and jump forward, we drive to work every day. We would drive to the grocery store every day. There were no services really near our house. In 2006, by that point, we knew our neighbors on our right and to the left and across the street, and that's all we knew in our neighborhood, because we'd constantly be getting in our cars and driving somewhere. So we got a dog in 2006, and she required 3 walks a day, so my wife or I would come home at noon, and within 6 months, we knew everybody that lived within a half-a-mile radius of us. My wife got diagnosed with cancer soon thereafter. The people that brought us the meals were the people that we had met when we were out walking our dog. So we created this community. But what it also did is showed me the type of community that I want to live in, and land use is very important to that, and how we develop our city can actually create that interaction between people. So that's our centers and corridors. We have 28 centers and corridors that our comp plan says that's where we want to focus our business development, and that's where we want to focus our density in our community. And those centers and corridors are still surrounded in Spokane for the last 19 years since we passed our comprehensive plan. They are surrounded by single-family homes. So if you think about the money that went into Monroe, and we've seen 14 new businesses on Monroe since we redid the street environment and made it more walkable, but every single area right around it is single-family homes, and so we have to upzone those, because single-family zoning is exclusionary in a land use that only requires that. We have other rules we need to get rid of. We shouldn't have parking requirements. What other industry do we say ever that when you build a home, we're going to put a $20,000 expense on it and require you to build a garage? Our strong business centers and creating the density around them will create the type of community that we want.
Thank you very much. This next question is really relevant to the executive branch, so I'll pose it to you, Mr. Suckert. As you know, last year, City Council passed an ordinance that created the city's first Sustainability Action Committee that would, among other things, create plans that would help the city achieve its pollution reduction targets and to achieve 100% clean electricity by 2030. In violation of his oath of office to uphold the laws of the city, Mayor Condon has so far refused to impanel this Sustainability Committee. My question has 2 parts. First, if elected, when would you impanel the Sustainability Action Committee? And second, would you go further and support the creation of a Spokane Office of Climate Change, Resilience, and Sustainability?
It's like you've been reading my website. No, on day one, we'll create an Office of Sustainability that will be a cabinet-level position so that we're using an environmental and sustainable lens when we're actually making decisions. Because if you're not at the table, right now we have these sustainability employees, but they're buried inside the utility department. And so they're not at the table when we're making decisions, but we know that all of our decisions affect the environment and our built environment. And if you're not involving sustainability in the conversation with planning or with police or how we roll things out, we can negatively have impacts that aren't seen until later. And so it needs to be an Office of Sustainability, and then council, led by Councilmember Beggs, when the mayor refused to impanel the Sustainability Committee, created a Sustainability Subcommittee under the City Council that's working hard and already making recommendations to the City Council on laws we can pass or support at the state level. We can take the best of those people and impanel them as the Sustainability Committee right away on day one.
Mr. Beggs, from the perspective of City Council, if you were elected as City Council President, would you approve of selecting funds to support the creation of such an office?
Oh, totally, yes. I mean, for all the reasons that you just heard. You need a climate change lens and sustainability lens when we're looking at everything we do in the city. The city in the last few years has been becoming more efficient, and they're doing things together, and they're realizing that one action affects other actions. And so you need that high-level person to do that. So we would definitely fund that. And I did just want to go back to the mayor's refusal to seat that committee. It was very frustrating, but I eventually went into his office and I asked him, are you going to put anyone on the committee so we can start? And he said, no. And I said, okay, well, we'll create this other committee. And the one thing, a little bit of lemonade out of that is that I think there was only 11 slots on the original committee. And so since we were opening up really to the people, we said, look, if you want to be on the committee, you can be on it. And so we have about 20 some odd people, and we have Kara Odegaard here somewhere who rides herd on that committee and keeps it moving. And it's really exciting because we've divided it into about 6 different subgroups, and they're all working on different issues, and they do peer review of each other's issues, and we're really moving forward. And you know, we could have just said, we're mad at the mayor and we'll just have to wait till we get a new mayor, but instead, we as a city and many of you in this room said, let's move forward. We're not going to miss a day on this.
Thank you both. Next question is for both of you. First to Mr. Beggs. Currently, Spokane's goal by ordinance is to reduce our greenhouse gas pollution by 30% from 2005 levels. However, according to the most recent report of the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, if we are to avert catastrophic climate change, we need to reduce emissions by at least 45% by 2030 and achieve net neutrality by 2050. So, Mr. Beggs, my question is, would you support modifying Spokane's greenhouse gas emission reduction targets to align them with the science?
I would totally adjust them to align them with the science. I've heard you make that point before. I haven't really seen the science yet, so I just have to look at it, and I'm sure you'll help educate me on that. But yeah, my whole thing on government is it should be science-based, not faith-based. And too many things in government crazily have become faith-based instead of science-based, and faith has a place in the world, but when we're coming together with all our different beliefs and experiences, we need the unifying thread of science so we can agree on something and move forward.
Yeah, those targets were established under Mayor Hession, actually, as part of the U.S. Council of Mayors in 2006. So it makes sense to revisit them as science advances, and I don't disagree with anything Councilmember Beggs has said.
Excellent. Thank you very much. The next question comes from our local high school youth activists from the Sunrise Movement, who successfully organized the Spokane climate strike several Fridays ago. They asked the following question. This is first to you, Mr. Stuckert. Why should young people trust you to represent them? And what is your unique commitment to climate action?
So my opponent didn't even show up, so I guess I'll give that. Please trust me. I have a history of success, and so I'd like to talk about that a little, because it's not like as council president for the last 7.5 years, I've taken climate change very seriously and led the passage of more resolutions and ordinances than any other council member ever in the city of Spokane. In 2012, I convinced all of the members of the city council to vote on the unanimous passage of a coal train resolution, despite pressure from Burlington Northern and coal interests. We were one of the first cities in the United States to actually take those coal trains seriously and the concerns that arose from that. I've been to Washington, D.C. 6 times lobbying on oil and coal trains with leaders from across the country. We were the first city nationwide to pass an oil train resolution calling for safer cars because of the risk that they have. I sponsored and passed an ordinance banning the procurement of products containing PCBs. We were the first city to do that. I sponsored and passed an ordinance banning the city's use of neonicotinoids, and that we were the second city in the United States to do that. I sponsored the ordinance to ensure that every new car that we purchase for our fleet in the city is more efficient, fuel efficient than the ones we are replacing, and we need to take that a step further. And then I spent 6 months working on urban farming, and we don't talk about how we get our food and how food impacts climate change. It's a huge contributor to our problem, and locally sourcing our food, where 97% of the food produced in Eastern Washington is shipped out of the region, and then we eat what we eat. 97% is produced outside of our region, and by growing our own food and localizing it, we can make a huge impact. And so our urban farming ordinance was great, and I enjoyed working on that. Sorry, I keep talking.
Mr. Begg, same question to you. The students of the Sunrise Movement would like to know why should young people trust you to represent them, and what is your unique commitment to climate action?
Yeah, so first I just wanted to shout out for the climate strike. I was marching in it and participating in it, and what I was struck by was how many people were there. And so I told one of my longtime activist friends, I said, next time we do a march, let's make sure we do it during school hours and say that it's a strike. But I say that only partly in jest. But as I said earlier, it's going to take all of us to do it. And there was something fabulously refreshing and unique about having not just the same old suspects there, but really having all these people that were passionate about it. And what I really appreciated about it is, at least from talking to my kids and my kids' friends, you all get that your life is actually on the line. And so the first thing that I would say why you should trust me is I hang out with young people, high school students, college students. I speak regularly in classes, and I give people a voice and space to be heard, that there's nothing about your age that disqualifies you from being heard on this and being a leader. Council President has a really impressive list of resolutions and ordinances. I don't have that many, but I will say this. I think my gift is bringing people together. And I think when I got done with college, and I had a lot of answers, I thought, to the world, and nobody was listening to me, so I went to law school, because then you could sue them, and they have to come to court and listen to you. And so I kind of made my way doing that by battling and taking on big corporate interests in government, and I've done that for 28 years. But what I really realized is the art of government is bringing people together. And I think that's what I'm known for in Spokane more than anything on any hot issue, including environmental issues. And I already mentioned getting together with Avista, which some people were like, boy, should they even be part of the conversation? And I'm like, yeah, they better be. They provide the power. So that's the trust that I would hope people have in me, is to speak up for all people and bring people together.
Excellent. So the last question in this first segment, I guess I'll start with you, Mr. Beggs, but just to set the context. So this last spring, our Washington State legislature passed a remarkable bill, the 100% Clean Energy Bill, SB 5116. And the key parts of this bill are that it commits the state by law to eliminate coal electricity from our grid by 2025, 80% renewable electricity by 2030, and 100% renewable electricity by 2050. So by law, our electricity grid is going to be gradually cleaned over the next few decades. That means that Avista and the electricity that we use from them will not be a major source of carbon emissions by the middle of the century. That leaves us with two other parts of the problem, that be transportation, which we've already talked about. The second one has to do with gas, fracked gas or fossil gas, the gas that many of us use to heat our homes, and to heat up our water. So my question for you is, would you support something similar to what is being done in other areas, where they were actually banning the new hookups of gas in new commercial buildings and new residential buildings? So again, to repeat the question, would you support passing an ordinance making it so that we would no longer allow new fossil gas hookups for residential and commercial buildings?
Yeah, so that issue is brand new for me. It's about 10 days old in my mind, and I'm not prepared to say tonight that I would ban that in Spokane. I'm open to learning more about it. One thing that I think has been interesting in the last few weeks, we've learned a little more about using natural gas coming out of the wastewater treatment plant. And I heard a presentation not too long ago from someone who's here locally helping the county. And as a first step, potentially, we have our garbage trucks are powered by natural gas. But they could be retrofitted to be powered by this natural gas that is renewable natural gas. And so that's my only hang up without having thought about it deeply yet is, are there other sources of renewable natural gas that we could use? So to simply say no hookups at this point without a plan forward would be hasty to me. But my sense of how we're going to get out of this problem, and hopefully we do it faster than the law requires, is to electrify as much as we can. Electrify our vehicles, and electrify our heating and our cooking and those things. And so I think if we show people that we can do that, and we show builders that we have the way to do that reasonably, then it's going to be easier to simply say, all right, no more natural gas hookups.
Mr. Stuckert.
I'm almost in the same boat where I have not been researching this over the last couple of months. We've been at forums. But I would say the city has a bigger impact than the natural gas issue if we all densified our 28 centers and corridors and created a more walkable environment and went full bore on that and how we build out our environment to shift away from the car culture, and more people walking and more people taking public transportation is going to make the hugest impact. And that's honestly where I want to spend my energy, is because the conundrum in density is everybody understands it. We understand the Growth Management Act says we didn't want to grow out, we wanted to grow in, but we have this thing called NIMBYs, and nobody wants a homeless shelter in their backyard. Nobody wants a apartment building in their backyard. And it's going to take a lot of heft for us to actually create the community that creates an actual better community where we all see each other all the time and don't demonize each other. It has to be the number one priority, is how do we densify our community to actually create community? Because it's going to be a push in every single neighborhood. Nobody wants their neighborhood to change. So I just think that's really where, like, if we're going to use a whole bunch of political will when we get elected, and you told me we're going to say no new hookups for natural gas, or we're going to get density in the next 2 years, I'd spend my energy on the density and building the type of community that's going to make a huge impact. Because the study that Gonzaga did, I thought the transportation was going to show up number one, but our built environment impacts that, and maybe part of that is the natural gas, as that was calculated into the impact. But I just think we have to densify our neighborhoods, or we're not doing our duty under the Growth Management Act, actually. Like, we're failing. Because that's why you see pressure to build out, is when we don't build up.
So in terms of transportation and the related emissions, that makes sense. But just to be clear, so if we have to achieve net neutrality by the middle of the century to avoid the most severe consequences, according to the science, then we need to stop using fossil sources of energy, including for heating. So densification.
I agree. I don't know if that's like number one issue moving right away into, but I do need to research it more.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you both so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to share your views with Spokane on climate change. I think they'll be really useful for voters as we cast our ballots in a few short weeks. You feel free to join the audience, and we'll transition to the second segment here. So we should play some music or something. We're actually running 10 minutes ahead of my schedule, so my inner German is very happy. Thank you for that, and thank you all for being willing to follow our rules here. So for our second segment this evening, we'll focus on the Spokane City Council. For those of you who are new to Spokane politics, our city is divided into 3 districts, with 2 council members representing each district for a total of 6 council members. Roughly, the east of Division and north of the river is District 1. South of the river is District 2, and west of Division and north of the river is District 3. City Council's 4-year terms are staggered, so half of the 6-member council's seats are up every 2 years. After the primaries, we invited all 6 candidates for City Council to join us tonight. Regrettably, like Nadine Woodward, Andy Rathbun and Tim Ben from Districts 3 and District 1 did not respond one way or the other to our repeated invitations. Voters will have to infer from that silence what they will. However, I'm delighted that we do have with us this evening 4 of the 6 candidates for City Council, representing among them each of the city's 3 districts. Candidates are joining me, which is wonderful. Please join me at the stage in alphabetical order. I'd like to welcome to the stage Michael Cathcart, who's candidate for District 1. Sorry, no clapping, but we'll do it this part. Tony Keepy, who is running for District 2. Lori Kinnear, who is also a candidate for District 2. And Karen Stratton, who is running for District 3. Thank you all for being here with us tonight. Just a reminder of our format. You'll have 2 minutes to respond to a question, and there'll be up to an additional minute for the moderator, me, to facilitate further discussion. Our timekeeper, Fauna, will hold up that sheet when you have 20 seconds remaining, and then another final one when your time is up. And we can keep time as we did last time, and we'll be able to proceed through all the questions. So our first question goes to you, Mr. Cathcart, and it has 2 parts. First, do you believe that global warming is caused mostly by human activities? And second, what, if any, are your concerns about global warming's effects on Spokane, the inland Northwest, and the world?
Yeah, well, thank you for hosting this event. I'm glad I was able to attend here, and unfortunately my opponent was not willing to come and engage in these conversations, which I think is unfortunate. I think men, women, humans do contribute to global warming. And as far as does it weigh on me, it's not really something that I think about every single day, to be perfectly honest with you. As I'm knocking on doors and talking to my constituents in District 1, it's not an issue that's brought up to me. In fact, I've had only one individual whose door I've knocked on bring the issue up. But it is an important conversation that we need to have. And so I'm glad to be here and have these discussions, and look forward to getting into some of the more details of the issues as we move forward in this forum.
Do you think it will have any impacts on Spokane?
It very well may have impacts on Spokane. I mean, if it is contributing towards worse wildfires, obviously we're seeing more smoke in the air that's contributing towards health issues that folks are having. And so, yeah, I mean, there are effects.
Thank you very much. Mr. Keepy, same question to you. Do you believe that global warming is caused mostly by human activities? And what, if any, are your concerns about global warming's possible effects on Spokane, the inland Northwest, and the world?
Okay, let's see it right now. Nobody's raising the red card. But anyway, I'd have solar panels on my house. I don't believe in global warming, but I believe, okay, there we go. I thought we'd get them eventually, but everybody's got to do their part. I put solar panels on my house last year, and my utility bill runs about $9 a month. It's fantastic. And now I'm here tonight because I want to learn. I want to be educated at what's going on. I think that's very important. If I'm going to be on city council, I got to be able to listen to all people. And Lori Kinnear is a great person right here beside me. And we can communicate to each other and talk to each other. But when I put solar panels on my house, and now I see reports where my panels have produced enough, it's just like planting 351 trees over the past 11 months. And you see how much CO2 you're saving by having your solar panels on it. But we need everybody to do their part. And I don't believe the government should say, you have to do this, you have to do this, but let's do marketing, let's do strategies. I mean, I'm a good example. I can tell people what it's done for me and my wife just by having the solar panels. So why don't more people have them on their house?
So,
well, that's a good question. Well, she said money, but yet the government, I got a $5,000 credit rebate last year, which another $3,000 carried over this year. And I got just $1,000 back about 2 weeks ago from Avista. And that's a 5-year program. So we need to make sure the federal government is giving incentives so you can go green. We need to make sure the city can give incentives to go green. Avista, I read recently that Avista is going to be giving rebates or credits to be more green down the future. And that's the way I like to see it, where it's voluntary, where we have the chances to get rebates.
So just to be clear, you don't think that climate change is happening, and that you don't think that it's human caused?
Well, I don't believe it's human. Well, I believe, okay, God created the heavens and the earth. I do believe that. And I believe we should be good stewards while we're here on the earth. And that means let's not have pollution. Let's keep our rivers clean. I'm on the Spokane County.
So is climate change happening or not?
No.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Kinnear, same question. Do you believe that global warming is caused mostly by human activities, and what, if any, are your concerns about global warming's effects on Spokane, the inland Northwest, and the world?
Okay, thanks everybody, first of all, for having us here, and especially to Mr. Keepy for actually showing up, Mr. Cathcart and Ms. Stratton for showing up. I'm really disappointed that the others could not make it, not just for the council, but for council president and mayor. That's very disappointing.
And for the city.
So we're here, and I absolutely do believe that climate change is caused, man-caused, human-caused. Can we do something about it? Absolutely we can. I have a long history in the city, even before I was on council, of trying to mitigate climate-caused activities, starting with spearheading a community garden program for the city where none had ever existed before, if you can believe it. Seattle had had one since 1973. City of Spokane couldn't manage to get it together. I said, that's enough. We have to have a community garden program. People need to be able to grow their own food and grow healthy food, but it also helps with our carbon footprint, so you're not buying things that have been shipped 1,000 miles. So I'm heartened by the fact there are so many young people. I feel that we have a responsibility to you to make this right. I don't think that our generation, I'm going to give a plug for the boomers now, I don't think our generation necessarily caused it, but we sure did put it in high gear and make it a lot worse. So I'm heartened that you're all here. I thank you for your participation, and as a council member, I want to continue a relationship with you all to make sure that we're moving forward in the right direction and that we're not going backward. We have to fix this now.
Just to clarify, in terms of the effects, what effects do you think might be coming for Spokane and the Inland Northwest?
Yeah, I got carried away. Wildfire, for starters, drought, the impact on our river and our in-stream flow, just to name a few, hotter, drier summers, allergies season that's longer or year-round. I mean, the list is very long. Bad air quality, not just from wildfires, but from emissions. The list is long. No snowpack, so if you're a skier, gee, sorry, you're going to have to go to, I don't know, the Himalayas. So, yeah, the impacts are, the list is long.
Thank you. Ms. Stratton, same question. Do you believe that global warming is caused mostly by human activities, and what, if any, are your concerns about global warming's possible effects on Spokane, the Inland Northwest, and the world?
I absolutely believe that global warming is caused by human activity. There's no doubt in my mind. I believe in the science. I will say that my mother is 92 years old, and she was born and raised on the Spokane Indian Reservation. She's a Spokane tribal member. So I was raised with a mother who was taught to honor the earth and to treasure that natural environment. So I was raised with that. But the most heartbreaking moment of my life was when we started having the fires, and the big fires up in Stevens County and on the Spokane Indian Reservation, and the damage that was done, the health effects that it has on people. My mother is pretty healthy for 92, but when you have to start worrying when you're at work and you see or you smell smoke in the air, you think, I hope she's got something on her face to cover her from the smoke. You know it's bad, and I think we all need to wake up and deal with it and accept the fact that you're right, we have to work together. We have to listen to each other and their concerns. But my big concern is the health issues that the fires have really, really played on people. I think it's really unfortunate.
Thank you very much. Our next question will start with Ms. Kinnear and relates to the intersection of climate change and the Spokane River. In 2015, we observed natural drought conditions that presented our Spokane River and our community with just what climate scientists project for the future of our water basin in a warming world. It's clear that in order to be resilient and retain a viable river into the 21st century, Spokane and surrounding communities will have to address water consumption. So my question is, if elected, how will you contribute to designing and implementing water conservation plans that address peak demand in our hot, dry summers and buffer our river against overconsumption of water?
It's an excellent question, and we're already doing that. We do have conservation measures in place, not just for our city, but people that we sell water to. The other piece is when you're talking about water, and most of the water, it's not your indoor water use that we're really concerned about, because most people are pretty frugal when it comes to indoor water use. It's the outdoor water use. So the city has instituted what's called Spokanescape that gives you incentives to get rid of your lawn, which is a huge water suck, and put in native plants and landscape it so that it's a low water usage. And the other thing that I'm doing right now is sponsoring an urban forestry ordinance update. And if you're familiar with that, we already have an urban forestry ordinance in place. It hasn't been looked at for 20 years. So we're looking at it right now saying how can we not only plant more trees and get up to a 30% canopy cover by 2030. Right now we're at 23%. But how do we incent builders, developers to plant those trees or not cut them down? So that is part of mitigating climate change locally too. We have to increase our urban forest, and we know the benefits. I will not insult your intelligence by telling you all the benefits of planting trees. We know what they are. We know that watering trees takes a lot less water than watering turf. So we have to transition from that 17th century English lawn look to what is prudent for us right now, today.
Thank you very much. Mr. Keepy, same question to you.
I agree with Ms. Kinnear. All right, yes, there we go. I like the great sides. Now, sitting on the Spokane County, I'm a commissioner for the Spokane County Water Conservancy Board. And you've learned a lot about how we take in gray water, all of our toilet water that goes through the process, where we're putting our water's 98%, 99% cleaner going into our Spokane River, and we're putting 8 million gallons of water back into the river just in the county. I don't know what the city's doing. About 8 million gallons?
Well, in terms of cleaning the water, it's cleaner when it goes into the river.
And these are things we've got to be doing. I mean, that's a small part. And you should go out to the Spokane County and say you want to do a tour of the facility, and they can show you where the process, where they're putting chlorine in it, taking the chlorine out. But every little thing helps. And I want to go fishing and trout fishing, and I want my waters clean. I don't want to see pollution in the water. We've got to make sure we take care of our rivers. And seeing us reclaiming our water like this, every household should want to do this to reclaim their own water within their home and make sure they have clean water. Our yards, I mean, I've cut back I used to water my yard 20 minutes per section. I've cut it back down to 12 minutes this summer, and I'll be turning it off tomorrow. I keep telling myself I need to do that, but we all got to do our own little part, and let's keep our water clean, safe, and make sure it's drinkable.
Thank you, Mr. Keepy. Ms. Stratton, so same question. How will you contribute to designing and implementing water conservation plans that address peak demand in our hot, dry summers and buffer our river against overconsumption of water?
So I think Councilmember Kinnear did a great job answering that. She talked about the Spokanescape. I spent a lot of time in the 8 neighborhoods in Northwest Spokane. We have a lot of residents that are benefiting from that program. And not only did we provide the information and we invited city staff to come to neighborhood councils, but then they would meet the residents at their place of where they live and show them and work with them on how to do this with their front lawns or back lawns, whatever they were trying to do. We also have a credit on the utility bill. If you use less water, if it's a certain amount, you get a utility credit. And I am proud to say that I got like a $3 utility credit last month, and I was very, very happy. The other thing, and I don't know how many people know about this, but I think it's those little steps that can make a big difference and a lasting impression on people. One of the greatest things I'd love to do as a council member, all the neighborhoods have celebrations, concerts in the park, and we will have city services go out and with education materials, that kind of thing. So we have a really cool trailer, and it's called Slow the Flow. And I don't know if you've seen it at any of these events. And I am one of these crazy people. I love to work it. So I will volunteer to be in the camper, in the trailer, pouring water and talking to people about water conservation. And I'm absolutely impressed every time I do it. It is the one place where people will come right up to you and they want to know. You give them information. They want to talk how they can do their part to contribute to trying to conserve the natural resources of our water. And to me, I'm very impressed. I think we need to keep doing that. Those little steps, I think they go a long way.
Thank you. Mr. Cathcart, same question.
Yeah, I was recently doorbelling just a few blocks from here and chatted with this lady in her 80s, and she was outside doing yard work on her own, and she had completely transformed her front yard from just a grassy front yard all by herself, and she was completely redoing it with rock and hardscaping and really making it look really nice. But I think the Spokanescape idea gives homeowners the ability to be somewhat innovative and ingenuitive with how they use their yards and how they landscape those yards. And so I think it's a great program that we should continue. It's a good way to rebate folks for conserving water. I think that's really important. Another thing I think we could do is just make sure that information's available. I live in a homeowners association, and I don't see my individual water usage. I pay a flat fee to the homeowners association, and that's how I pay for my utilities, my water usage, that sort of thing. And so I think encouraging, whether it's homeowners association, condos, multifamily units, where maybe they're not getting those individual water readings, encouraging that information, I think would be very beneficial so people could see how much water they're actually using. And I think that'd be a real smart way to go about it. The other thing is, I think, we've been really smart with the Cleaner River Faster program and building the CSO tanks, and I think that's really important to clean the water and make sure that we're being good stewards with the river, because ultimately we all want a clean river and we want it faster. So I think that that's been a real successful program, and once those are all completely online and working, I think we'll see some really good positive results.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. So this next round of questions, we'll start with Mr. Keepy. Tailpipe emissions, as I mentioned before, are the #1 source of emissions in our state. And so my question is, what is your understanding of the links between land use, transportation, and climate change? And what policies would you support, if any, to give people in Spokane more opportunities to reduce vehicle miles traveled?
I get to go first. But one thing, if you ever sit downtown traffic, and you have a bus in front of you, and this bus is just, the emissions, it's just your whole car is filling up. I think we've got to look at how we can make the buses not have so much emission and more people riding the buses. But to me, I don't like smelling all that smell in my car from those emissions. So I think we really need to look at that, see how we can do better with just the buses. Today's society, we take cars. We take cars everywhere. Here in Spokane, we've got 6 months, 5 months of the year where it's too cold. We get snow September 30th on the ground. So can we really ride bicycles and be in more bicycles because of the weather? When you have bad weather, I don't see people riding bicycles. You have to be honest. People are going to drive a car.
So are you against buses or for electric buses? I'm not clear.
Well, I like buses. I think more people need to take advantage of the bus. I don't like the emissions coming out of the bus. And one thing I think we need to look at is our buses are too heavy. The weight of the buses is hurting our streets. One of the biggest complaints on our streets is the potholes and the streets wearing down. But yet our buses are so heavy, that's part of why they're breaking down.
So you wouldn't necessarily support any particular projects to reduce vehicle miles traveled?
I need more. I really don't know much more about that. So
thank you. Ms. Stratton, same question to you. Do you want me to repeat it?
Repeat it.
So the question is, what is your understanding of the links between land use, transportation, and climate change, and what policies, if any, would you support to give people in Spokane more opportunities to reduce individual vehicle miles traveled?
So Council President Stuckert brought this up earlier about our centers and corridors and building up and making those areas places where people can live, shop, eat, go to school, get on a bus, go to work, and to really encourage that, because I think there's a generation, every year I get older, I see more people wanting that kind of transportation. They want transportation options. I also think those are opportunities for us to create more walkable environments, safe walkable environments in our neighborhoods and our centers and corridors, despite the fact that I'm scared of the scooters because someday I'm going to get on one and fall. Every little thing we do can make that difference. The other, I had another point on that I wanted to say. It was, hold on, it was that, how's my time? Oh, I have a minute. No. So centers and corridors, the options for transportation, I think is great. I think the bus, we have to make, even for senior citizens, when I doorbell and you talk to people that as they get older and they're in these neighborhoods, they're even looking for places that they can go that are more, there's a quality of life, but they're closer to a community. They can, take the bus somewhere or walk to the store.
So just so I'm clear,
there's a lot.
Ms. Stratton, so when you say centers and corridors, so everybody knows what you mean, or that I understand what you mean, are you saying you'd prefer not to expand the boundaries of the city or into the county or encourage more development, but rather more density?
More density inside the city. I have done a ton of doorbelling up in 5 Mile and up in North Indian Trail. And let me tell you, the more apartment buildings and homes that are going on up there, there is one way in and one way out. And if you're there at 7:30, 8 in the morning during rush hour and 5 o'clock at night, you're sitting with your car idling and it's taking you a long time to get home. So no, it definitely needs to be inside the city core.
Thank you very much. Mr. Cathcart, would you like me to repeat the question? It's kind of long, sorry. So what is your understanding, if any, are links between land use, transportation, and climate change, and what policies, if any, would you support to give people in Spokane more opportunities to reduce individual vehicle miles traveled?
Well, land use is really, really important. I mean, this is one of the keys, I think, to a lot of the issues that we're currently facing, whether it is climate change or whether it's something like our housing crisis. We need to be a lot smarter with how we deal with land use. And so one of the things I would like to do is I would like to see us, as some have mentioned, push for more density in our centers and corridors. That's really important. We can support our employers that way. We can build more units that way. We can start to see more affordable housing options that way. We can create more choice in the system. We can allow more products to be built, more cottage housing, more townhomes, things like that are maybe smaller footprints, that give people, again, choices and options and geographic location choices as well. One of the things I really look forward to championing is a small lot ordinance so that we can make sure that seniors wanting to downsize or younger people who want a starter home that's affordable have those options as well. And we need to look downtown, I think, at lifting some of the height limits that are there to make sure that we can add more residential downtown. The more people we can put in our centers, our corridors, our downtown, the more robust and more vibrant those places are going to be. The other thing is, I'm frankly not a big fan of white paint on the road and calling it a bike lane. I think it gives people a false sense of security. And I think that if you're going to do bike lanes, you have to do it in a real way that provides real security for people so that they are somehow divided from the roadway. I think that's really important. And there's some innovative ways we can do that, I think, whether it's, adjusting levels of the sidewalk there's some things we could look at that would, I think, create more safety and probably encourage more people to actually bike to work or commute via bike if we had safer options like that. And the last thing I'll mention is I think neighborhood retail is really important too, and we can't overlook that. And so I think if we have options within our neighborhoods for people to shop and dine and eat and play, that gives people a walkable opportunity to experience those things, and that's really important. I know where I live, it gets a little frustrating because I've got a grocery store nearby, but I don't have a lot of other options. If I want to go to a pub or I want to go to a restaurant, there's just not a lot of that stuff nearby to walk to, and so I've got quite a ways to walk. And so I think the more we can encourage neighborhood retail, the better it would be for our community and for the walkability.
Thank you, Ms. Kinnear.
Thank you. First of all, I'm on the STA board, and we are in the midst right now of planning for our Central City Line. And those of you who don't know what the Central City Line is, it's going to be essentially high-speed transit going from Brown's Addition to Spokane Community College. It's going to run frequently. It's going to go right through downtown. It's going to be electric. It won't smell. So you'll be happy. We are also transitioning from diesel to hybrid buses and to electric buses, but we can't do it all at once. It's expensive. So we have to rely on money from the feds and other money that comes in from grants to make that transition. But that is the plan. And most recently, we're going to have rapid transit going from Moran Prairie way south all the way to Indian Trail way north. And again, it's going to go frequently. That's the key. Make transit convenient for people to use. You shouldn't have to wait a half hour for a bus. You should be waiting a minimum of 10 minutes. And if you miss it, the next one's going to come along. We do have to marry transit and land use together. And as Mr. Cathcart said, the white paint on the ground for bike lanes is just not adequate. We must have separated bike lanes. It has to be safe and, again, convenient to use. And people will use it. Density, I want to talk a little bit about, how much time do I have? Oh, gosh. So center and corridor, perfect example is Hamilton. We also implemented form-based code on Hamilton. So centers and corridors and density does not have to impact single-family neighborhoods. It doesn't have to. You can do it thoughtfully, and you don't have to create this us versus them condition or the NIMBYism that we get from so many things that we do. So there are ways forward, and it is extremely important that we marry land use and transportation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think our next question starts with Ms. Stratton. It returns to a question from the first segment, and it relates to the Sustainability Action Committee that was created by ordinance in 2018. So my question is, do you support the impaneling of this committee? And secondly, would you go further and join the recommendation from the first segment of creating a Spokane Office of Climate Change Resilience and Sustainability?
So I'm going to take 3 seconds because my big idea came back into my head that I forgot. I'm currently working with Kendall Yards and West Central neighborhood, and they want, and I believe Councilmember Kinnear is possibly doing it in the South Hill, they are looking to create a golf cart zone, and that's for people that need to go to My Fresh Basket or need to just take a little bit of a trip outside to get something. So they're looking at electric golf carts to do that. So it's great to kind of have those two neighborhoods working together. Yes, I would absolutely support an Office of Sustainability in City Hall. That is why we have to get Ben Stuckert elected and Brian Beggs. And what was the other?
The impaneling of the Sustainability Committee.
Yes, and we did vote to get a committee going, the subcommittee that they've talked about before. I worked for Mary Verner when that whole sustainability plan was developed, and I saw the amount of work that went into it and the quality of people that sat on that task force to put that report together was phenomenal. And so for me to see it now, us pushing it forward, saying we have to do something with this. This is great material. We got to update it, and we've got to get out there and start implementation is a good thing, and absolutely I'd support an office.
Thank you. Mr. Cathcart, same question. So if you are elected to City Council, would you encourage the mayor to impanel the Sustainability Action Committee, and would you further support the creation of a Spokane Office of Climate Change, Resilience, and Sustainability?
Well, I'm on the record last year opposing the concept of that. I don't have a problem with the committee itself, but I think anything that we do has to have a financial feasibility study as part of it. So whether that's implementing new regulations on local employers, whether that's something the city is going to implement on themselves, I think we have to make sure that we're doing a feasibility study to make sure that we're doing it in the most cost-effective way. We can reduce CO2 emissions, and we can do it in a smart way by, looking at offsets. The Seattle City Light does a really good job of buying offsets at as cheap as $7 per metric ton. And we can look at those sorts of things as a cost-effective way so that we're not breaking our city budget, and perhaps we can provide incentives for local employers to consider purchasing those offsets to offset their carbon emissions. And I think we do that with incentives rather than mandates and requirements on our local employers. I think that's really important, that we make sure that we're not costing ourselves really badly needed jobs, especially in my district, which is Northeast Spokane, where we have some of the most poverty-stricken areas of our city. Hilliard is the poorest neighborhood in the state of Washington, and we cannot afford to lose good-paying jobs. In fact, we need to make sure that we're focused on growing good-paying jobs, and so that's going to be my emphasis.
Just to clarify, so it's clear that you wouldn't have voted for it if you were on council. Separate from that issue, we have this issue of city council passing ordinances and then having the executive not follow them. So if you were on council, would you encourage the mayor, even if you disagreed with the policy, to follow the ordinance that was passed? So with this issue of the relationship of the executive to the legislative.
Yeah, in fact, I think I had asked the mayor if he would appoint me to that last year if he was to impanel it. So yeah, I would.
Thank you very much. Ms. Kinnear, would you like me to repeat the question?
Brian, you asked very complicated questions.
It's philosopher, sorry.
No, I got it, but if I don't answer it, then you can re-ask it.
I will.
Yes, I support the Office of Sustainability, and one of the objections, the reason that the mayor said he vetoed it, was that we didn't have a fiscal note in it. The committee, had it been impaneled, would be advisory only. And in terms of jobs, you know, there's so much opportunity for green jobs that I don't look at that we're going to be losing jobs. I look at it as we're going to be gaining jobs that are going to be essentially good for the community. So that argument doesn't really work for me. And I think we're running out of time where we can say that something should be voluntary. I don't think we have that kind of time. I think we're at the point now where we're in this together. We don't get another planet. There isn't one out there waiting for us. We're going to need to take care of this one and fix what's wrong. The committee will advise us, and as a council, we can say, yes, that works, or no, that doesn't work. But their primary job is to do the work so that we can make a good decision.
Thank you. Mr. Keepy, I think we're to you.
Yes, I 100% would support a committee, but I would want that committee to be a volunteer committee. We're all passionate about Spokane. We all love Spokane. And we need to listen to all ideas, what will work best for us. And if the committee comes in and brings some great suggestions that's cost effective for Spokane, I'm all for that. So let's definitely do a committee and have the mayor appoint the committee that they can come to the city council and talk to us.
And the second part was whether or not you would support even appropriating funds to create an Office of Climate Change and Sustainability.
Right now, we have other issues that I think are priorities, such as public safety. We need more police on our streets. That's where I would put the money first. Any leftover money, this would be a secondary on my.
So if it was up for a vote, would you vote for it?
No, I would not vote for it.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right. I think we're back around to Mr. Cathcart to start this one. The question has to do with our greenhouse gas reduction targets. As I was mentioning earlier, right now, our target is to reduce our greenhouse gas pollution by 30% from 2005 levels. The scientists tell us as of this year that we should reduce our pollution by 45% by 2030, and by 2050 we should be net neutral emissions. Would you support modifying Spokane's greenhouse gas emission reduction targets to align them with the science in that way?
Well, I think really that's more for the state level, but I would prefer that we do things more with offsets. I think that's incentivizing our local employers to purchase offsets or use offsets. I think that's the more appropriate way to go. So just so we're not harming our local jobs here, I think, you know, and as Lori mentioned, the green jobs, and that's great, but there's no guarantee that those jobs will come, and there's certainly no guarantee that they're going to be jobs that people in my district are able to fulfill as soon as their job leaves. And so I think that's the thing that's really important, is we can't have a gap. We have to make sure that folks have those job opportunities that are good paying, and that there is upward mobility, that they can move up and improve their current situations. That's just so critical for our community right now. Our median household income has been stagnant for several years. We've got to focus on increasing and improving that. That's key.
So I think the idea would be neutral as to how you would reach the target. So you could reach the target through offsets if you wanted to. The question is whether or not you'd support aligning the goals, the targets for reductions with the science and achieving them through whatever means that you thought was best.
If we can do it through incentives, again, I would prefer the carrot approach. I don't want to force our folks to do this because it puts us at a competitive disadvantage with others in the region, and which is why it makes more sense to do this on a bigger scale, whether it's state or federal. And again, no matter what we do in Spokane, it's not going to affect what happens in other states and other countries, and so we have to keep that in mind as well. We don't want to hurt ourselves. If we can do it in a regional approach or in a national approach, that's going to be a much smarter solution, I believe, for the community.
Thank you very much. Ms. Kinnear, same question. Let me know if you want me to repeat it.
Yes, I do support using science. And in fact, all of my decisions that I make, going to college, I majored in science. My life is based on science. And you use science to make decisions, because there's the methods that you go through to reach a logical conclusion. So yes, I do. And I want to do another plug for trees, okay? Because I think there's some different ways that we can reach this. And I just read an article today about people around the world who are planting trees. And it's going to take a while, but they're planting billions of trees in their countries and volunteers, and they're going after it. And I think we've got to be there too. As far as us not making a difference in Spokane, we do. We influence, we're the second largest city in the state of Washington, and we influence other regions, we influence other cities, and we can be a leader. And I think it's time we stepped up and we were the leader of something that is this big.
Thank you. Mr. Keepy, same question. Would you support changing Spokane's greenhouse gas pollution reduction targets to align them with science?
Oh, absolutely. We want to match the science. When I was at Hollister Steer, FDA came in and said, hey, you're 0.01 impurities, but if you wear 2 booties, you can get that impurity to 0.02 or 0.002, and they showed us the science behind it. And believe it or not, when we started going into the clean rooms wearing 2 booties, that's the boots that go into your shoes when you're going into a clean room, and you're wearing these $200 outfits that are all clean, sterile outfits. And the science said by doing this, and the FDA recommendations, if you do this, you're going to have a better product that is more pure. And we did that, and if the science says we need to align it by 2030, we need to do the same thing.
So to clarify, you don't think climate change is happening, but you do support the science that we should align our reductions with the science. So could you clarify the relationship between those two questions?
That's a good question. Okay, I think I want to show. We have science that says, yes, there's climate change. We have science that says there's not climate change. For every left, there's a right. But see, that's we're listening, we're talking right now. So based on reading one thing, the next day you read something else. And just reading recently, 3,000 scientists come out with the UN saying we're against. That's not me saying this, but you probably saw it on Facebook, that it's not, well, you have to read, not everything is true that you read on Facebook, you know that, but you have to actually read where the source is coming from. But they're saying, the scientists are saying it's not true, that not everything is true that we read. And if the science says we have something to back, then yes, we should do that. But I don't believe in the climate change.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that clarification. Ms. Stratton, would you suggest that Council revise the greenhouse gas pollution reduction targets to align them with the current science?
First, I'm glad you defined what a booty was. I was kind of wondering that. Second, yes, I think that we should align with the science. And I agree with Lori. I think it's time that we stand up and we be leaders and we make the statement and we don't make apologies for it. And we serve as that example for not only the next generation, but people in the inland Northwest and across the country, that we're doing it and we're proud of it and we're going to lead the effort, and it's all good.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask one last question. I think we're on Ms. Kinnear as our opening here. Is that right? I think that's right.
Sure.
So it's the question from the students who organized the climate strike 2 Fridays ago.
And thank you all students who did that, by the way.
So the students, the question that they submitted, so I asked them to submit a question. This is the question that they submitted. Why should young people trust you to represent them, and what is your unique commitment to climate action?
So when I was 25, there was an adage that said, don't trust anyone over 30. And that stuck in my head. But then after I was 30, I realized that is ridiculous. So I want to just give a rundown of all the things that I have done so far, and then you be the judge. I've already mentioned the urban forestry ordinance. I've already mentioned starting the community garden program. I worked on protection of public lands and spaces. That means public land, trees, vegetation, illegal fires, and our river. I also worked on the sustainability ordinance, the first one that just set the goals. That was in 2017. I worked with Councilmember Beggs. The two of us were wanting to put coal and oil train initiative on the ballot. And we were there by ourselves, and everybody's looking at us like, you are crazy. No, we aren't. We want it to go before the people. We wanted the people to decide. And we were voted down. And he's back there now. Is that not correct? Yes. Okay. Yeah, we won eventually, but we were there, you know, the cheese stands alone. And there we were. So I already have a history of wanting to protect our earth and protect your future. So I would ask you to trust me, because I'm going to be listening to you as well. And you're going to tell me, you know, you're really screwing up, or yes, that's exactly what we want you to do. I will be listening, and I will be having your best interests at heart.
Thank you, Ms. Kinnear. Mr. Keepy, same question from the high school students. Why should young people trust you to represent them, and what is your unique commitment to climate action?
Well, I have 4 children, and I think today it's sad that our children are scared to death. They think the world's going to end in 12 years, and they're very passionate. They believe that. I don't believe we're going to end in 12 years, but I believe there's things we can do together to make it a cleaner, better Earth. But my concern is, what kind of message are we sending to our children? And I don't think we should be out protesting, picketing during school hours, but they have the right to do that on Saturdays, Sundays, after school. But why do they have to go get out of school just to protest? That's my belief. So I see you believe a little bit differently, but that's okay. That's why we're here.
Indeed. Indeed we are. Thank you. Ms. Stratton, why should young people trust you to represent them, and what is your unique commitment to climate action?
Well, first and foremost, I'm a mother. My husband and I have a 24-year-old son that lives in Maryland. He's way ahead of us as far as this issue goes. The second reason is I would tell them that I was one of them. I was blessed to be born in a family that were very proactive. My parents were very involved politically, and we were taught to get involved, to stand up, to talk about what we believed in, and to the best of our ability at young ages to respect differences of opinion. So those would be the 2 things. And I would also tell them that since I've been on the City Council, I've supported the legislation that addresses some of these issues. I just now got on the STA board and am working with STA to get up to speed on the transit. And so I'm kind of immersing myself in that, but that I do support our young people. It's going to be their land soon, and it's their future, and we need to listen to them because they're going to be the leaders tomorrow. So I have good relationships with young people, and I think that they would be very comfortable in supporting me because I'm not a good liar. My face turns red when I lie. But I'll meet them where they're at, and we can talk and take their ideas forward and make them a part of the solution.
Vote for me, I'm not a liar. I like that. Finally, Mr. Cathcart, why should young people trust you to represent them, and what is your unique commitment to climate action?
Well, first of all, I'm here, and I think it's really important that we're engaging and having these conversations. I'm very accessible. I think you could ask probably any reporter in town that covers local issues, and they would tell you that I'm very accessible. I'm an easy person to talk to. I'll give you a straight answer. I think those are virtues that you want in a city council person. And I'm really excited to join the council and lead on some of these things. I'm for more denser communities around our centers, our corridors, more neighborhood retail, more walkability. I think those are things our young people are eager for. We can add vibrancy to our community. I think there's a lot of things even right here in the Logan neighborhood that we can do to really improve both the landscape and the environment. And I think that our universities are great partners to work with. I'm excited to work with our universities, most of which sit in my district here. Furthermore, I wouldn't do things like adding more regulations on Uber and Lyft, which are some things that the incumbent council member for the seat I'm running for championed. I would not pass those sorts of things. In fact, I will not pass or support the passage of further regulations on those. I think that helps to reduce single car usage. I think that's a great way to, encourage a cleaner environment is by using Uber and Lyft as an alternative option. So we want to make sure that those stay low cost and accessible for folks. And I think young people are eager for that. Furthermore, on jobs, I'm going to be the biggest jobs champion you've seen, and we have got to make sure that we have good paying living wage jobs right here in our community for our young people who are graduating from our local universities. And that has got to be something that we are paying attention to and focused on. Otherwise, we're going to continue to see talent flight. Some of you in this room maybe even are looking at places to leave Spokane for because of better jobs and better pay, and just better urban environments that you're excited for. So I think we can do a lot of things to improve our community, and I'm really excited to do that. And I think young people would find that I've got the passion and energy, and I'm willing to listen. I've always got an open door, and love to hear your ideas. So please talk to me. You can call me anytime. My cell number is right on my website, votecathcart.com. Please just call, email, whatever. I would love to hear what your ideas are. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Let's give all of them a round of applause. There are quite a few of these different forums, and the candidates have really busy schedules, and these 6 candidates, chose to be here tonight, and I think all of us benefited from hearing their views. As you leave, I would really encourage you to speak to some of the organizations that are here tonight, the Lands Council, 350 Spokane, Spokane Riverkeeper. I'd like to also give a special note of thanks to the Nonpartisan League of Women Voters. Sally? The League of Women Voters is here tonight to register anybody who is eligible but not registered to vote. You can still register to vote, and so see the table back there in the place where you came in. We have just less than 5 weeks, but you can still register to vote. And I hope that all of you consider the climate when you vote on November 5th or before November 5th. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.